I've been a crab fisherman for nearly 20 years, working the cold waters off the Maine coast. The sea gets in your blood after a while. But what happened last October still keeps me up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what's really swimming beneath those dark waves. The day started like any other. Me, my brother Mike, and our two deckhands, Pete and Sam, headed out before dawn on my boat, the Lucky Lady. She's not much to look at, just a 42-foot crabber that's seen better days, but she's always been reliable. The weather report called for rough seas, but nothing we hadn't handled before. We needed the money, and October is prime time for Jonah crabs. By mid-morning, we were about 15 miles offshore, and the weather was turning nasty faster than expected. "Might want to head back soon," Mike said, eyeing the darkening sky as we pulled up another trap. The waves were hitting 6 feet and climbing. "Just a few more traps," I insisted. "The holds are only half full." Pete and Sam exchanged looks but didn't argue. They knew how tight money had been since my divorce last year. By noon, the sky was almost black, and the waves were crashing over the bow. The radio crackled with warnings about an unexpected storm system. We started pulling up our gear, working double time to secure everything. That's when Sam noticed something strange. "Hey!" he called over the howling wind, pointing off the starboard side. "What's that?" At first I thought it was just the waves playing tricks on our eyes. But then I saw it too. Something dark moving just beneath the surface. Something big. "Probably just a whale!" Mike shouted, tying down a stack of traps. I nodded, but something felt off. Whales don't move like that. Not so fast and not in tight circles around a boat. The radio suddenly erupted with static, making us all jump. Through the crackling, I could hear fragments of another boat's transmission. Something in the water, not natural, lost 2 men already. Before I could respond, a massive wave hit us broadside, sending Pete sliding across the deck. He would have gone overboard if Sam hadn't grabbed him at the last second. "We need to go! Now!" Mike yelled. I didn't argue this time. I headed for the wheelhouse while the others finished securing the deck. The engine roared to life, but as I turned the boat toward shore, I felt a sudden resistance, like we'd caught on something. "Check if a line got tangled in the prop," I called to Pete. He reluctantly went to the stern, leaning over cautiously. The color drained from his face. "There's something down there," he whispered when he came back. "Something holding onto the boat." "Don't be stupid," Mike snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. Another wave rocked us, and then came a sound I'll never forget. A low, rumbling moan that seemed to come from all around us, vibrating through the hull itself. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't a whale. It was something else. The boat suddenly lurched forward, free of whatever had held us. I pushed the throttle as far as it would go, and we cut through the waves toward shore. That's when Sam started screaming. We turned to see him pointing at the water behind us. Something was following, just a dark shape beneath the surface, moving faster than any fish or mammal I'd ever seen. "Don't look at it," Mike said, his voice shaking. "Just keep working." For 20 terrifying minutes, we raced toward shore with that thing following us. Sometimes it would disappear for a moment only to reappear closer to the boat. The radio kept cutting in and out with fragments of other boats reporting similar sightings. About 5 miles from shore, it finally stopped following us. We made it back to harbor just as darkness fell, our holds half empty but none of us caring. The Coast Guard later told us 2 fishermen from another boat had been lost that day, swept overboard during the storm, they said. But I saw the look in the officer's eyes. He knew there was more to the story. 3 other boats reported seeing something in the water that day. One captain, an old-timer I've known for years, pulled me aside at the dock the next morning. "The old ones who first fished these waters had stories," he whispered. "Things that live in the deep parts. Things that only come up during certain storms." I haven't been back to that part of the fishing ground since. Neither have Pete or Sam. Mike thinks I'm crazy, but even he agreed to stay closer to shore these days. Sometimes at night I still hear that moan in my dreams. And when I wake up, I swear I can feel the boat rocking, like something is circling beneath it, waiting. The sea holds secrets. Most days I try to forget what I saw. But when the storms come, I find myself watching the water, wondering if it's out there. Watching, waiting, hungry.